the relationship between particularism and universalism within within Judaism. This time of year, universalism and particularism keeps coming up in the themes. Rosh Hashanah is a universalistic holiday. If you read about it, it says Kol Bai Olam, everyone in the world is judged by God. That includes non-Jews, includes the whole world. And the fact is Rosh Hashanah is actually the birthday of creation. Therefore, it has universal motif, as universal base in terms of it being something that happened to all humanity. Yom Kippur is specifically to the Jewish people. Historically, it represents the day that Moshe finally came down from Har Sinai and said, "You are forgiven," okay, and everything's basically cool with God to a certain extent. He's not going to wipe you out. But the point is, it's specifically a Jewish thing, and it was specifically the Jewish people were forgiven. So the point is you have a universal theme and a particular theme. This continues into Sukkot and Shmini Atzeres. Sukkot is always seen as a universal concept, in the sense that the idea is in terms of the temple, and Sukkot has certain temple considerations at the same time because it's somewhat connected to the celebration of the temple when it was originally constructed by Shlomo Melech. The fact is, it says, "Ki beiti beit tefillah yikareh lekol ha'amim." My house will be a house of prayer for all nations. Is a universal site. That's why a non-Jew who brings a sacrifice is accepted in the temple. In fact, it's well known that the Caesar of Rome used to arrange for a sacrifice every day in the Jewish temple. Okay, that was going. There was a standing sacrifice every day brought by the Roman Caesar, or initiated by the Roman Caesar. The point is, though, when we get and this finds itself in Sukkot, that if you count out all the sacrifices of Sukkot, it comes up to 70. And we have this idea that 70 nations. It doesn't mean actually 70 nations. 70 is the term for a finite infinity. That's what 70 really means. In other words, we know there's a certain amount of nations, but there's a lot of them. So we use the term 70 to represent the number of nations. Yet, when we talk about Shmini Atzeres, there's one specific korban that's brought by Shmini Atzeres 1, and that is deemed to represent Israel, which is Am Echad Ba'aretz, the one nation in the world. So we have this tension between the universal aspect and the particular aspect. Particular meaning the fact of Jewishness. Okay, so that's what we're going to look at. Now this begins with the following question. How do you look at yourselves? Do you look at yourself as human beings, or do you look at yourself as Jews? What's the primary starting identification of yourself? Are you human beings that happen to be Jewish, or are you Jews?
Happen to be human.
I think everyone in the room we can say it to. Some may not apply. Okay, fine. Okay, what are you? Are you Jews or are you human beings? That's really the basic definition there.
It's almost like a tension between them.
Yeah. The fact is, one of the reasons that people have difficulty with Jews is because they believe Jews to be distinguished. In fact, the idea that we are one nation chosen by God is one of the reasons that many non-Jews have problems with Jews. What do you mean God chose you? You know, Jews like to also say, we don't proselytize. We never go out and proselytize. So when I was in Providence, Rhode Island, I spoke to her on Shabbaton there. I remember after lunch I said I'll take questions. Just whatever questions you have, I'll take it. And there was a guy who was sort of older man who says, "Rabbi, exactly where you're standing." And I was in the synagogue there. He says, 20, 30 years ago, there was a Protestant minister who was standing exactly your place. And they said to you, "How come you guys don't proselytize?" But if you think you have the truth, if you think you have something that's good for all humanity, why do you keep it for yourselves? What? What are you better than us? And we look around and say, we don't proselytize. To a lot of people, the fact that we don't proselytize is the fact that, boy, you stuck up blankety blank. We're not good enough for you? You know, you have the cure for cancer, and well, it's only for us. But too bad, we don't care about you? And the fact is that's that's an issue. The idea that we're one nation. Why are we distinguished? Okay, so the point is really a question of how we how it permeates our consciousness. Do we see ourselves as Jews, or do we see ourselves first as human beings and then Jews? And once again, do you want to share your feelings on this, or no?
I think I see myself first as a Jew.
Right. So therefore, you're ethnic-centric and
Yes.
right. Close to being a racist.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. The fact is I'm just joking, sort of. No. Okay. Anyways. And people will see this all over the world, but I won't mention your names. Okay. Okay. Anyways.
Just tell them it's Susan.
Okay. Okay. Anyways. So the question that exists is what, what is this particularism versus universalism? And in many ways, Jews can suffer from this because they don't have the sense of universalism. When I'm talking to my brother-in-law, who's from Rosenzweig, the founder of Hafta, he goes out there and does a lot of things throughout the world. He helped out in Haiti and
Darfur.
Darfur, out there and helps with Pakistan as well. And he goes and helps all human beings. He's out there helping the homeless and so forth. And there are people who say, why are you concerned about it? Why don't you just there are enough Jews to help out? Why don't you just help the Jews, just Israel? And he goes, no, don't we have a mission to the world? Don't we want to be involved in the world and so forth? And there's many Jews who are very happy to support him and say, gee, feel good about being more universalistic. And other people basically say, I have a problem with almost a problem to be universalistic. So that's a tension. And that's a tension that really is found here. So to really understand that, we have to look at why are Jews distinguished. The prime question is, if there's one God who's the God of all humanity, why does he distinguish this one nation? That's the key starting point, the key question. Hey, why should we be different if there's one God?
Well, I think, from the stories of the Torah, he did try to start with all of humanity, right? And he kept narrowing it down because it kept failing until he had to choose one person whose descendant became a nation.
And?
So then his message has to come from those people because he tried
His message to who? His message to who?
To the world has to come from the Jews.
Did you hear what you just said? You said he distinguished the Jews because it's the only way to ultimately positively affect all humanity.
He tried with humanity.
But you basically stated that really the objective is all humanity. Really, it's all humanity that's the goal. We're just a method to get there. So the fact that we're Jews is basically, it's the way to eventually try and affect all humanity. But in the end, you want to get to all humanity because ultimately all human beings are, quote unquote, equal. Right? That's what you're saying.
Well, yes and no, because from the Torah, we're all equal. However, the Jews are held in a higher level.
Oh.
We are more special.
We're all equal, but we're more equal than others.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Oh, so we're more special. So why is that so? Why does the one God specifically point at, pick out the Jews and that? If you say it's the way to get the job done, then, okay, it's fine. But that moves in terms of the tension. See, if you look in terms of secular historians, Apicursus, heresy, whatever. But the fact is that the concentration of the Torah on the Jews as a unique nation was very much in line with the paganism of the time. Every nation had their own god, right? Zeus was the god of the Greeks, and Ra was the god of the Egyptians, so forth and so forth. And whenever nations went to war, it was like my God versus your God, like Athens and Troy. Which of the gods are gonna win this time, right? So the point is that that's what happens. So the original perception so if you look at historians, they say that originally God, Yud-K, Vav-K, was the God of the Jews. And eventually, over time, it started having more of a universal message and so forth. And that's the way they try to find it. But they said that because they're saying that because that's the only way they can understand this. Because why would the universal God, one God, right, which is the key point of Judaism, why would the one God single out this one nation, right, to exclusion of everyone else? Aren't human beings all equal in the eyes of God?
Well, we see it as being singled out because other religions see themselves as being singled out.
Other religions see themselves singled out in a different way. Other religions see them singled out between belief and non-belief. There's a major distinction. The major distinction is that Christianity says, I would say, Muslims is the difference between someone who believes in Allah and someone who doesn't. That's a distinction based upon belief. So obviously, the religious person says we separate between the guys who got it right and the guys who got it wrong. The believers and the non-believers. The believers and the apostates. Same with Christianity. Believers and apostates. Right? You can be born a Jew and if you became a good Christian, well, that's great. Okay, the point is that because the definition to Christianity is based upon belief. We make a big difference. We state that it's not even a question of belief. We're saying there's a distinction based on nationhood that says we're different than you, and it seems to be that it's not a matter of the fact because we believe in God. It's the fact that Jews are different because they're Jews, even if they don't necessarily believe in God. So the question is, how does God make that distinction of peoplehood? Okay, so anyone wants to venture a comment on this? Okay, so what we have to look at, though, there's many ways of approaching this. There are two basic ways we can approach that to try and understand what the definition of Jewishness is. That's what really we have to look at. We have to try and come to what is the definition of Jewishness that explains this uniqueness in terms of God. First thing is the definition of Jewishness is inherently a problematic hybrid. Okay, on the surface it seems to be a problematic hybrid. Okay, because it seems to connect religion and peoplehood. Are we a nation or are we a religion? Okay? Now, the point is that we sometimes say, well, it works, but the truth is we don't really recognize how at odds those two definitions are. You have Canadian is a nationalistic definition. Catholic is a religious definition. You can have Catholic Canadians. You can have Catholic non-Canadians. Right? It's two different. Right? You can have Canadian Catholics and you have Canadian non-Catholics. Two different definitions. The question is, Jews somehow join together this definition of religion and nationhood, and there actually are in the halacha you actually find the basis of those two definitions, which are inherently contradictory. There are two definitions of a Jew. One is born to a Jewish mother, and the other one is if you convert pursuant to halacha. Okay? Those are the two halachic definitions of a Jew. Okay? Now, if you're born to a Jewish mother, you can have this crazy situation that the Bishop of Paris is Jewish, or was Jewish. Right? Okay? Madeleine Albright is Jewish. Okay? Does that make any sense to you? Okay? Jews for Jesus are Jewish. That's why they started it. Right? It's Jewish. Okay, so the point is and halachically you have this definition, born to a Jewish mother, which has nothing to do with faith whatsoever, it seems. On the other hand, in terms of conversion, it's pursuant to gerus halacha, means pursuant to accepting halachic law. Okay, conversion means by definition, I accept the law that I'll be bound by. I accept the religion, I accept the law to be bound by it. And therefore you have the problems now in Israel where a person is nationalistic Jewish, he joins the Tzahal, something like this. He's involved in the Jewish community. He's involved in Israeli society. Yet he doesn't believe in God. And here you have his next door neighbor, who also doesn't believe in God, but was born to a Jewish mother. And there's actually a philosopher I just read recently that actually says that 70% of Israelis are atheists. Okay, which is a shocking figure, but he says that Israel is the most the atheistic country in the world. He says that's a great oxymoron of Israel. His philosopher he says 70, there is no God, but God gave them the land. He says he doesn't understand this. That's the way Jews sort of put this together. Okay, to the side. But the fact is that if his figures are correct, and my wife doubts that's she questions that, and a lot of people I said that to question it. But here you have in Israel two guys. They were in Sahal together. They both act the exact same way, right? Their behavior is exactly the same. This one was born Jewish, this one's not born Jewish, but wants to be part of the nation. He wants to live in Israel, wants to be part of the nation, right? Really is identifying with the Jewish people, but he doesn't believe in God. Okay? And we tell him, well, this guy's Jewish. Absolutely, he's Jewish. He's good. You're not Jewish, because you have to the only way to become a Jew is if you accept Jewish law, which means you accept the divinity of Torah.
But it's not fair, because the one that's born to a Jewish mother doesn't have that same
Right,
obligation.
exactly.
It's not fair.
That's exactly it. So that's inherently the contradiction. It seems to be a contradiction. On one hand, you have this crazy idea that Bishop of Paris can be Jewish, right? Technically Jewish, because born to a Jewish mother. On the other hand, you can have this situation where an individual who identifies with Jews and abides by certain practices with Jews and lives with Jews and so forth, but did not accept Jewish law, is not a Jew according to halacha. How does this work? What's this definition? One side of the definition seems to be totally nationalistic. Born to a Jewish mother seems to be totally nationalistic, ethnic, right? If you're Italian, it's because you're born. You can't convert to become Swedish, you're born Swedish now, you can't convert, so it's ethnic. On the other hand, yes.
What you're saying now, we have in Flamingo, as I understood it when I was there with Sam Kipper, a handful of men who are not Jewish, I think they're Mexican, who love the Jewish religion, yes, and they come to daven, and the rabbi knows about it. And they even know a little Hebrew.
Good.
But they don't want to convert. They're
Great.
not Jewish. No.
Great.
Now, all right, I'm asking you a question now. The question is, according to, I should say I believe, because I'm not the rabbi, you're the rabbi. I understand, according to the Torah, let's say what happens on, like Pesach, for instance. A non-Jew cannot sit at the Seder, for instance.
A non-Jew technically cannot join the Seder in the temple. There are other halachic issues with a non-Jew coming to our Seder table, but it's very different. A non-Jew could theoretically be at the Seder, at our Seders. But back in terms of the temple, when they had the Korban Pesach, a non-Jew could not participate in the Korban Pesach.
That belongs with Korban Pesach. Okay. What about davening in Tefillah? No problem?
That counts as a minyan.
No, not kind of a minion.
They can daven.
But why don't you go to the root? Why don't you go right to the root? Belief is a matter of ideas. What about if someone who's not born to a Jewish mother believes in the religion?
But it's interesting because they love the Jewish religion. They love the Jewish people. They don't want to convert. They're just.
But what if
There's a family at our shul.
I don't know. I never
There's a
spoke to
family
them.
at our shul. The father is
Crazy world today.
is Jewish. The mother isn't. She practices. All of their kids practice. She never felt she had to convert, so she didn't convert.
And the kids aren't.
Yeah, but the kids feel they're Jewish, so they feel.
When they're ready, they convert.
Right. No, well,
But
they perceive them as Jewish. What you're getting to is the individual.
No, but what I'm saying
Yes.
is, okay, fine. So these Mexicans believe in it. They have a great time. They want to go, but they don't want to convert.
Problem is they serve lunch every
Remember
week at your
David,
shul.
J. David Davis. I was about to get to that.
Same.
I was getting to that.
No problem, they serve lunch at her shul every
Yeah,
week.
hey, Yom Kippur, what are you talking about? They were there Yom Kippur in shul. Wow. Praying with us.
So when
Okay.
somebody asked David Davis, so why didn't you just convert? He said, what for? What do I have to work so hard for? I'm not
Right,
Jewish.
okay,
I can
so
enjoy it and believe it and
The fact
do it,
is,
but not obligated.
is that really, the truth is that when referring to J. David Davis was a minister, was a Baptist minister in the South, in Athens, Tennessee. And he started going through the Bible and started having a lot of interesting questions about the Bible, about the Old Testament, as he calls it. And he went to go talk to the rabbi in Chattanooga, Tennessee. The reason I remember that is because that could have been me, because I was offered that position and I turned it down, and the guy who took the position was the guy J. David Davis went to. Okay, I could have been world famous anyways, but okay, so the fact is, but now I have kosher tubes, so anyways, so the fact is that J. David Davis started learning about this, and he decided to become a Noahide, which means a person who is not Jewish but follows the 7 Noahide laws. And he went up he had the second largest Baptist church in Athens, Tennessee, the Emmanuel Baptist Church, and he went up one day and took down the cross and started calling himself just Emmanuel. And we brought him in to speak. Nishma and Jews for Judaism brought him in to speak. We had about 300 people at Shar Shemayim, right? And it was
When was this?
in the
Many
90s.
years ago.
Yeah, in the 90s. And he was a very interesting guy. He was very interesting. One of the interesting questions that happened was, a couple of interesting things. He flew in, the program was to be on Sunday night, and we were going to have a special thing for rabbis and educators on Saturday night. And we thought, okay, so we started talking to him about coming in on Friday and where he'd stay for Shabbos. And he just said to me, he says, "What are you worried about? I'm a goy. I'll fly you on Shabbos." Okay, he says, "No one has to pick me up. Where do you want me to go for Shabbos? Tell me where you want me to go for Shabbos." So it was like he was right, and it was very interesting because I made the point. It was interesting. At Shar Shmuel, I made the point. The question was, he had a kippah. His name was J. David Davis. And he had a kippah. You know what his name? David, right? So we were talking about this. I said, when you speak in the shul at Shar Shemayim, don't wear the kippah. I specifically do not want you wearing the kippah. So I want everyone in that room to recognize that you're not Jewish. And you're not wearing a kippah because you're not obligated to wear a kippah because you're not Jewish. And it was a very powerful idea. It was a very interesting program. But J. David Davis is actually in a long line of individuals who were called Noachites. The fact is that Josephus already talks about people who were friends of the Jews. There was a whole group of individuals in the time of right before the Second Temple who called themselves God-fearers, who identified with the Jewish people, but they didn't convert. Now, there was a real reason why they didn't convert. Well, a lot of people were very concerned about converting, especially males. Mm-hmm. So the fact is a lot of women wanted to convert, but when they enter the husband says, "We aren't doing that." So the truth is they became very strong God-fearers. And the fact, obviously, is when Christianity really exploded, one of the reasons Christianity exploded was because they said, "Hey, you can get God without circumcision." So a lot of men said, "Okay, that sounds good to me." So the point is that was really an issue. But the fact is that back already, Josephus talks about God-fearers. In the 1800s, there was actually an individual in France called Aimé Pellier, who was who had a relationship with a Rabbi Eli ben Zamoga, who he wanted to convert, and Rabbi ben Zamoga convinced him that there's no reason for him to convert. He can serve God as a Noachide in following the 7 Noachide laws. So the fact is that really expands our definition of Judaism. And this is really the issue that most Jews don't recognize. To really understand Jewish identity, you have to divide it into a matrix of 4. Okay, so think of a graph. Okay, on one side put believer, not believer. On the other side put Jewish or not Jewish. So you have 4 different categories of individuals in the world, not just Jew and non-Jew. You have Jewish believer, Jewish non-believer, non-Jewish believer, non-Jewish non-believer. And the fact is, Jewish law really defines all 4 categories. Obviously, the Jewish believer is okay, it's fine. The Jewish non-believer really is perhaps, of the 4 of them, the one who's in the most problematic definition. The Jewish non-believer, in terms of the technical law, there's a concept of yorid vein malin, means you push him down and you don't lift him up. Which means if you're standing beside the Grand Canyon, besides a Jewish non-believer, and you sort of stretch out and he falls over, it's a mitzvah.
What?
No, it's a mitzvah. Now, wait a second. I'm going to give a caveat to that in a second. If you hear a guy calling from way down in the well, "Someone save me! I'm going down." Do you hear anything? Doesn't that sound like the Jewish non-believer guy? I don't hear anything. That's your reading vein malin. You're reading, put him down, ein malin. You're not supposed to help him up. That concept only applies to a true heretic. In our world today, there's a statement of Maimonides that says basically that no one really is a heretic today, because we are all subject to our upbringings, and a heretic is one who knows the truth and rejects it. He basically makes a statement about the Karaites, and he says in Hilchos Mamrim, he says that the Karaites, the original Karaites, they're total heretics and they're to be treated in this way. However, their children are tinok Nishma, are comparable to someone who's been captured, a child who's been captured by non-Jews, brought up within non-Jewish thought.
People who grow up with a good education, they just decide they don't want to.
So the fact is, if you look in terms of the Chazon Ish and other people today, it's extended like that. The Chazon Ish says, without open miracles, how can you call anyone a real
I
heretic?
still have a problem with that whole concept, because aren't we supposed to value life more than anything? Like, that really threw me, what you just said.
Why do we value life over everything?
I thought that Judaism really values life.
We have executions.
But
Right?
the executions are so padded that it's impossible to execute.
That's true,
anybody.
except for the fact that we had courts. We had courts that could execute. The truth is it was necessary for the benefit. if it's necessary for the benefit of the nation, and I'm not advocating this. What I'm trying to state is that the same way you find laws that say, here is the law, do this, and you get death penalty, and as Susan here said, the death penalty never materialized, and that's a classic Gemara in Makos. And Rabbi Akiva said he would never execute anyone. Fact is, it gives you a statement of this is the idea. Obviously, you're not in favor of declaring anyone a heretic, and nowadays, especially given all the influences of our thought and the lack of absolute proof in terms of miracles and so forth, everyone is, the way I see it, is in the category of Tinik Shanishma, of not being held responsible that way, and therefore they're not in that category of a Jewish heretic. But it's important to recognize that within Jews there's a definition of Jewish nationhood, and then there's a division between believer and non-believer. And non-believer is a different category than believer. So the point is, you say the bishop of Paris is Jewish, yes, but he's a Jew not in good standing, is the way I would say it. Okay? It's not in good he's not in good standing.
We would throw him off the cliff.
Well, no, because he's a Tidik Shanishma or whatever. But basically, not that I'm advocating say we're going to throw him off the cliff. I want to make it clear because everyone's going to. I'm going to be visited by the police. But the fact is, what I'm trying to say is, if also make it clear that to make a distinction from Muslims acting like crazy people. We're not crazy people. That's going to get me into trouble with the police. Okay. No, the fact is that Not all Muslims, just some. Okay. But I have to be worried about. I just have to be worried about the ones who see this saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, what?
You're getting nervous.
No. The fact is that what I'm trying to say though is that we are very sensitive to life, but there are obviously times where life trumps. The truth is there are situations where life trumps. We talk about how important life is and so on and so forth, but in terms of mitzvot, there are three categories of mitzvot that you're supposed to die rather than transgress, and that's in terms of sheikhus dam and murder, okay, avodah zarah, idolatry, and gilui arayos, in terms of improper sexual, major improper sexual. Pardon? Contact, right. Well, specific contact. Okay. The point is, though, is that but here we have the significant idea that there is a difference between Jew in good standing and Jew not in good standing, although the definition of not in good standing is, in our world, a flexible one because it is somewhat dependent upon the potential for someone to have learned about Jewish theology and to understand it and to integrate it. But it's significant to understand that Jewish law does distinguish between ethnicity and religion. Now, in terms of non-Jews, the same idea still exists. Non-Jews, you have a non-Jew who's a non-believer, and you have a non-Jew who's a believer. Now, in Israel, we had two types of gerim. You think of a gerim as a convert. Actually, ger is really a statement meaning it's like an immigrant. A ger is really an immigrant, and there were two types of immigrants. One was a ger tzedek, who really was a person who applied for citizenship in the Jewish people, and the other one was a ger toshav, a person who wished to live in Israel as a non-Jew. And the ger toshav was to get all the benefits of a Jew in many, many ways. If it was ohip, you get ohip. You know, and the fact is that the Ramban specifically states as a mitzvah that you are supposed to reach out and be welcoming to the ger toshav, the Noachide who accepts it. We call them Noachides nowadays. So therefore, the religion of Judaism is actually a universal religion. It believes all humanity should believe in this religion.
So with Avraham Avinu, when he said ger v'toshav anochi.
Well, he meant a little bit differently. Yeah. Right? But he meant the fact that he wasn't a citizen in that country. Right? He had to wait till Jews came back to establish the nationhood or the country. But the point is that he was not part of that society. The fact is, and by the way, that's a significant idea that many people don't recognize. In terms of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, in terms of living in the land of Israel, there is a mitzvah living in the land of Israel, but there's also a mitzvah to establish a Jewish society in Israel, including a Jewish nationhood. So it's not just the fact that I live there, it's the fact that there is a mitzvah to establish a national identity, a Jewish society in Israel. We'll get to that in a second.
You know what I don't understand? I was reading an article recently. Somebody was writing Jerusalem Post, not religious, and he was writing how his son was going out with this girl for 4 years, and he proposed, and she suddenly started to cry. She said she's been dreading having to tell him this, that she's not halakhically Jewish. They were immigrants from Russia. Her father was Jewish, and in Russia she was discriminated against because she was Jewish, and here she has a problem, she's not Jewish. So she was a secret, and he didn't know that she wasn't Jewish, not religious, and that was like one of these tearjerker things to make me feel bad, because I, how she celebrates the same, they described it how the same, her celebration of holidays is exactly like his, this, that, so they have this problem. But the fact is, if Torah is totally not an issue for either, they can get married, it's just not a Jewish wedding, and they can get married outside the country, they can live there together.
What's that? I mean, if Torah is not an issue for them.
Yeah. Well, so I don't know why it should even be so important for them to get a halachic wedding. Like, it
They don't
bothers them
want a
that
halachic wedding. They don't want a halachic wedding. They want to get married.
they can though. They cannot. They
No, wait a second. They can't get married in Israel. That's the problem. That's why there's arguments there should be a secular marriage in Israel.
Yeah.
The problem is that you're basically saying to me, this is all part of the issue. We were talking about this before, in the sense that
it's really sad, though.
Because the truth of the matter is conversion halacha says you believe in halachic Judaism. And then you're going to people who don't believe in it, who think, well, this is the only way you become a Jew. Now, the argument is that's the only way we'll maintain unity is if you have someone becoming a Jew according to every position of Jewishness. But the point is you have people who basically, this woman most likely acted no differently than the guy.
Exactly the same way of life.
Totally, exactly. And the fact is, in her mind, she
according to the Jewish calendar,
and most likely according to her things, she would think she was Jewish. And the point is that halachically, and we're looking and saying, well, why should it matter? They're doing the same, but according to halacha, it does matter. But let me continue with it. Let me try to explain this, because the fact is that there is, to understand halacha, you have to understand that there is a universal religion in halacha. The religion we'll call Judaism right now, and what that religion does is distinguish in terms of behavior between two people. Between Jews and non-Jews. In other words, two individuals share the exact same belief. One person is told by God, you have to do this, and one person is told by God, you have to do that. That really is the structure of Judaism. The question is why would God distinguish between telling these people to do this and that people to do that? That becomes the issue. So, to look at that, there's actually two understandings of that distinction. Okay? The first one, I'm going to look at number 5. Okay? This is perhaps the one that people talk about. One is what I would call an a priori distinction, which means an inherent distinction. Okay? Pardon? I know. I should have blown it up. Okay? I'll tell you what he says. Okay? Okay? Pursuing the Kabbalistic thought, when Adam and Eve ate of the Eitz Hadas Tov Ra, it was a catastrophe in the cosmos. Now, Adam and Eve had a unique soul. It's a very special divine soul that they had. When they ate of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, this soul sort of blew up. Okay? And what happened is that there were good parts of the soul and there were bad parts of the soul. Okay, there was something in other words, there were certain parts that maintained the unique soul that Adam had before he ate of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and there were other parts that were really very negative aspects of the soul. Let's say that's in the perception of the Tanya, the way he defines it. See, the Tanya says, for example, he'll say that like, for example, I'll just read it. From the soul stems also good characters which are to be found in the innate nature of all Israel, such as mercy and benevolence. For in the case of Israel, the soul of the klipa is derived from klipa noga, that's the good, which also contain good, as it originates in the esoteric tree of knowledge of good and evil. In other words, the fact is that the Jewish soul is made of good stuff. The soul of the nations of the world, however, emanate from the other unclean klipot, which contain no good whatever, as is written in, what is that? Eitz Chaim, right, Eitz Chaim. Okay. It's a famous Kabbalistic word. Okay? That all the good that the nations do is done from selfish moments. Okay, so the fact is that, okay, so the Baal HaTanya takes the most powerful definition between the Jewish soul and the non-Jewish soul. There are theories of the Jewish soul beforehand. The Kuzari also argues the uniqueness of the Jewish soul. He says that uniqueness of the Jewish soul is in the ability for prophecy. the Jewish souls allow someone to be a prophet. If you don't have a Jewish soul, you can't be a prophet. Everyone asks the question, what about Balaam? So the Kuzari says, yeah, Balaam was one exception that shows what happens if a non-Jew gets prophecy, he's not going to
But
turn out well.
this is just somebody's philosophy. This isn't accepted.
It's the Baal Tanya.
I know, but still, like not everybody.
Well, how many people have heard of something called Yiddish Nishma?
Yeah.
Okay, Jewish souls, right? Okay, how many people believe in the concept of Yiddish Nishma?
Yeah, I think so. Sure.
Okay, what you are saying is that there is an inherent distinction at birth between Jews and non-Jews.
Can you summarize how that happened again? So Adam with this.
Adam was born with. How this happened, I don't really know. But the fact is that Adam is born with Adam is created with this special soul. He does this sin, quote unquote sin, and it blows up everything. And after that, his soul, the perfect soul, the good soul, is not transmitted to all his descendants into the future. Now, the truth is, in this theory, according to Kabbalistic thought, what happens is that some people get the good soul and some people don't get the good soul. Okay, Sheikh gets the good soul, right? The third son of Adam, he gets the good soul. Noah got the good soul. Right?
There's not much free will in that.
Yeah, that's a big problem.
Yeah,
that's a big problem. We talk about good souls and so on. There's a lot of issues in Judaism.
I saw a real problem with this.
Okay, let me.
Yafet got the bad soul.
Okay, so according to
do good things, but from a selfish.
That's about Tanya's definition. Okay, let me deal with the Kuzari's definition. The ability to experience God or to feel God, that's an attribute of the soul. The soul knows of the existence of God. Okay? So therefore, good souls know of the existence of God. They are tied to prophecy. That's why the Kuzari says Avraham Avinu could know God at the age of 3. Why? Because he had the good soul. Right? But his father Terach didn't have a good soul. So his father Terach had a real problem. He didn't know about God. Finally, his son educated him and so forth. The Kuzari says there are people don't have the soul, but they can still be good people or whatever. But the point is, the good soul is our ability to feel the divine, according to Kuzari. The Baal Tanya takes it a little bit further and says that, in other words, the Kuzari seems to define the good soul in terms of it has a special quality, but then the Baal Tanya seems to imply that the good soul has good qualities, and the bad soul and the not good soul has negative qualities. Okay, Jews have this and so forth, because what happened according to Kuzari is that God created that after Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, everything blew up. Not all his descendants got the good soul, which leads to problems of what do you call it? Challenges to free choice and predestination and so forth. But I'm not going to deal with that right now. It's a big problem. But the fact is that afterwards, some people got the good soul, some people didn't get the good soul. Hanach got the good soul, right? Avram got the good soul. Terach didn't get it. Shem got the good soul after the flood, right? Then Avram got the good soul, right? The covenant that Avram made with God was that all the descendants of Abraham will from now on get good souls. In other words, it didn't go through heredity. Abraham,
so that's the
deal.
Ishmaelites too.
No, the descendants through Yitzchak, through Yaakov. Okay? Theoretically being...
Well, the difference is the wife.
What?
Sarah was chosen, and Hagar wasn't. She was rejected.
Okay. The fact is that whatever is, God basically said, from Yaakov Avinu, all the children of Yaakov Avinu will have good souls. That's the Yiddish Neshama. Okay? And non-Jews don't have the Yiddish Neshama. Now, the fact is...
What do you call a Jewish non-believer?
That's a problem.
Yes.
That's a problem with issue.
Forget the non-believers, Mishra. What about an evil Jew? There are evil Jews.
And By the way, that's part of the
That's the
issue.
problem.
This is part of the issue with this idea because it does lead to the
But you thought
aspects.
you were getting in trouble with the other comments. This one's so juicy.
I'm just giving over aspects of Jewish philosophy. I'm not. The fact is that's a problem of predeterminism.
And you really think, like, they really think that there is no non-Jew who, not out of ulterior motives, is a...
I have. By the way, the Balatani's definition.
If someone were to read this, that was not,
Yeah.
I think it's just...
It's racism.
Listen, excuse me.
It's just something he's presenting.
The Balatani.
So you could say that...
This is what the Lubavitch-
No, excuse me. I'm just showing you what the Balatani says. The fact is that Lubavitch today actually does do a lot of work with non-Jews and is very friendly with non-Jews and so forth and so forth. Okay. Well, I'm not sure that's the only reason. But the fact is that they do advocate for Noachism. So how do you understand Noachis? Now, the truth is the Avram basically the deal with Avram was the good soul will now be totally in your children through Yitzchak Yaakov will have the good soul, the Yiddish neshama. Now, what you're saying is, you're saying no non-Jew would ever have a Yiddish neshama. So the truth is that people say yes, Yiddish neshamas sometimes do show up in non-Jews. Those are the people who want to be Megayer. Okay, and the fact is the Rizal's understanding of a Gemara is that one of the reasons we're in the Gullus is to collect all the good souls. The truth is I'm going into an area of Kabbalah, which when you talk in this idea, it's I always find it problematic because you really don't know what you're talking about. Because it's an ethereal concept. But the point of what you're saying is that a Jew is inherently different. That's the point. Why are Jews distinguished? Because they're inherently different. Okay? And that inherent difference is in their makeup that they have this thing called the Jewish soul. What Avram did is he had that soul, he did something special, and then he just got it that every one of his descendants through Yitzchak Yaakov would have this soul. But it's an inherent distinction. Right? A Jew walks in, he is inherently different. Why? Because he's Jewish. Okay, that's one approach. Okay, and because of this soul, that's why they get Torah and so forth and so forth. Now, the problem that exists is the extreme aspect of that idea could be that if it's really true that the non-Jews don't have this good soul, and they really and really they're not in the whole, driving over. You do have certain viewpoints in terms of messianism from a Jewish perspective that eventually, right, all those people, right, who don't have the right soul, they're going to be lost. Okay, because they don't have whatever it is.
The Jews.
What?
You mean the Jews?
No, the non-Jews. There's messianism, and from that perspective, there's an idea that messianism is basically for the Jews. Okay, it basically is something for the Jews. What?
So in times of Mashiach, only Jews are going to
to a certain extent, but then.
But I thought it was going to be a whole different world.
Okay, okay, but the fact is that the perception is the distinction between Jew and non-Jew is inherent, and that.
What do you mean when you said they're going to be lost? Because I thought that it's going to be like all the nations of the world will recognize God and everything like that.
Yeah, the sources seem to say that not every nation is going to make it.
Iran will get bombed first, right?
Right. Okay. By the way, can I tell you something? Can I point this out? The Rambam says that we don't know what's going to happen when Mashiach comes. So I'm not really trying to say anything but predictions. What I'm saying is, and I want to go back to what I'm pulling out of this, is that there's a distinction between Jew and non-Jew. There is a viewpoint in Jewish thought that says that distinction is inherent. Okay? Jews are inherently different than non-Jews. Now, are you having there be problems with it? Yes. Now, one of the ways you can sidestep the issue is that a non-Jew can become part of the Jewish people. And therefore, they can benefit from being part of the Jewish people. The idea being here is that God made a distinction between Jew and non-Jew because the Jews had some special spiritual side to them.
Which could explain why they've done
Right.
so much more in the world. I mean, to jump, but
Whatever, all
So
those
you're
things.
saying that God chose the Jews because he saw that they're spiritual?
No,
Is that
no,
what
no,
you're
no. I'm saying that God, the fact that Jews were chosen was inherent. They were different.
What made them different?
Their souls.
How do you
According
explain
to
that
this
to a
viewpoint.
teenager? I'm thinking of my kid.
But
How do you explain
okay.
that?
So the truth is, I'm expressing this viewpoint in Jewish thought that says the distinction of Jews is that we have a Jewish soul, and that's what makes us different. And therefore, because we have that, we have more commandments and so forth and so forth, and we're able to get closer to God. All those things. That is one viewpoint. And that leads to issues. Well, so what about the non-Jews? And it does lead in the extreme to some people basically not caring. It's like, right, they're lost. Or the other people say no. We'll see how other people take it from the fact that the Jewish soul doesn't just means that Jews have more of a responsibility.
I have no problem with any
Okay.
of that. I have a problem with saying, right, that we're
Fine.
good and they're evil.
Fine,
Like
fine.
that's
I gave the most extreme viewpoint.
But that's what I'm saying. It's a viewpoint. It's not something that all Orthodox
No.
rabbis believe.
No,
like,
no,
this
that's
is just an extreme
okay.
viewpoint.
The other view that I want to explain, I'm trying to give the two points, two extremes expression. The other viewpoint is the viewpoint of the Rambam. Okay, the viewpoint of the Rambam is mentioned here. That's Rambam. It's not Ramban. It's Rambam. Letter to Avadja Hager. Avadja Hager wrote him and said, "Can I say, when I'm davening, can I say Elokeinu v'Elokei Avotenu? Okay, our God and the God of our fathers, Elokei Abraham, Elokei Yitzchak." Can I refer to that? Can I say that? Okay, because let's face it, I'm not born Jewish. He's not my father. So Rambam says, in the same way as every Jew by birth says his blessing and prayer, you too shall bless and pray alike, whether you're alone or pray in the congregation. The reason for this is that Abraham, our father, taught the people, opened their minds and revealed to them the true faith and the unity of God. He rejected the idols and abolished their adoration. He brought many children on the wings of divine presence. He gave them counsel and advice and ordered his sons and members of his household after him to keep the ways of the Lord forever. As is written, for I have known him to the end that he may command his children and his household after him, that may keep the way of the Lord to do righteousness and justice. Ever since then, whoever adopts Judaism and confesses the unity of the divine name, as it is prescribed in the Torah, is counted among the disciples of Abraham our father, peace be with him. These men are Abraham's household, and it is who converted them to it is who converted them to righteousness. Okay, now I'm going to read the other one, the Rambam in his letter to Yemen. Remember that ours is a true and authentic divine religion revealed to us through Moses, the master of the former, as well as the later prophets, by means of which God has distinguished us from the rest of mankind. Notice it. By means of which God has distinguished us from the rest of mankind, as Scripture says. Only the Lord had a delight in your fathers to love them, and he chose them and after them, even you above all peoples. This did not happen because of our merits, but rather as an act of divine grace, on account of our forefathers who were cognizant of God and submitted to him, as we read, the Lord did not set his love upon you, nor choose you, but because you were more in number than any people, but because the Lord loved you, and because he would keep the oath which he swore to your fathers. God has made us unique by his laws and precepts, and our preeminence is manifested in his rules and statutes. What the Rambam is saying, still read over here, right? Okay, the Rambam is saying is not that there's an inherent distinction between Jews and non-Jews. What he's saying is the distinction of Jews comes about through the fact that they observe mitzvot. It's a posteriori.
So he wouldn't agree with Tanya.
No. The position of many people, there's an article written by David Berger, by Rabbi Dr. David Berger. He says specifically on the issue of the Jewish soul, and he says, it's clear the Rambam did not believe in the Jewish soul. Okay? The fact is what he says. He says that what distinguishes Jews is the effect of observing Torah. Okay? In other words, through the years that we have gone by this culture and by this philosophy, we have become different. And Torah has affected us. Okay? And that's what makes us unique. The question emerges is why was Avram chosen for this? And this is where the Rambam basically argues that, and you said this before, God originally wanted to reach out to all humanity. The world got all shaken up after Adam and Eve left the garden, and God wanted to bring him back. So he kept working with the people and so forth and so forth. Eventually he had to go and say, listen, the only way this is going to happen is if I pick a people to start the process of reclaiming all humanity. So I need a group of people who are going to lead the fight back to the good for all humanity. And the person he chose to create this group was Avraham Avinu.
Because Avram chose him.
Because Avram chose him. For reasons Avram chose, for Avram, because Avram, for whatever reasons, and there's questions what the reasons were, but had a lot to do with him finding God and so forth, is that he became the person, he became one who had a covenant with God and said, okay, your people, your children will form the nation that will bring back the good to humanity. Okay?
We're not doing such a good job.
And through the Torah, you will develop into this nation. So remember I mentioned Rabbi Eli Ben Zmoga, the person who told Amy Paley you could stay a non-Jew? He basically said that the Jews had a major role. They were the Mamlechas Kohanim. Like the Kohen, the priesthood, served within the Jewish nation. There was a priesthood that did special services. We are the priesthood of the Jewish people. Are supposed to be the priests of the world to spread the message of God out to the world. Now that means that God created a specific nation and said to the nation, "I'm going to give you obviously there's a certain nobility to this. You're given a special task by God, and therefore you are given the special rules." Because you have this job to bring morality to the world. So you have to follow a stricter morality or a stricter standard in order to be able to be in that class that will affect the world. And Jewish life becomes distinct through the permeation of observing of Torah. That's what makes Jews different according to the Rambam. But in that one, it's clearly for the eventual purpose of reaching humanity. There's still a benefit from this. It's still an honor, in the sense that Avram was given this honor by God. But that's basically it. So the fact is, from that perspective, Jews have an obligation to the world to reach out and develop a greater morality. So in that perspective, that's one of the aspects of having a Jewish nation, because it was determined that the only way to eventually bring the world back to the good was by having one nation specifically stand out and create a certain force in the world by being more careful, more scrutinized on a certain level. The other thing that the nationhood did is that the unique aspect of Judaism also is that Judaism also believes not just in a personal relationship with God, but a national relationship with God. It's not enough for human beings to relate to God on an individual basis. Inherent in Torah consciousness is the development of this world, and therefore the development of countries, the development of nations. Okay, so we are also supposed to be the model nation. That's why the way we were originally intended to do the job was by forming a society that would be the model divine society. Not simply as individuals being religious, but a model divine society, a total corporate society. The Chasam Sofer writes, for example, that in Israel, it's very important that Jews do study. And Chasam Sofer was not a person who was in favor of the general study of study of secular studies. But he said in Israel, of course, you need your accountants, you need your lawyers, you need your doctors. It's very, very important that Jewish society in Israel be totally within the framework of the nation, because the nation has to be a divinely ordained nation. There's a national relationship with God, and therefore we're supposed to be a model nation to the world as well. Not just model citizens, but model nation as well. So that perspective creates the idea that we are that our definition of Jewishness, first of all, is not inherent. It's a posteriori. It's through the effect of our education and so forth and so forth. And that objective is to serve humanity. So, anyways, but the point is, in reality, you hear a little bit of both. Okay, Jews talk a little bit of both and so forth and so forth. Even in terms of, like we were saying, even in terms of the more of the people who talk in terms of unique souls. Again, they also believe, many of them believe that we may have unique inherent qualities. That's why we're part of this nation. However, also the goal is to spread the good to humanity. So in a certain way, we're part of humanity in terms of that goal, but we're supposed to be a separate part of humanity in order to accomplish our goals in humanity. There is some sources in Jewish thought that seem to imply that a lot of humanity be redeemed, almost like because they're so negative, and especially in terms of pointing to the anti-Semitism of many people. Other people point to the fact that we want to hope that all humanity be redeemed. It's a challenge in the sources. What will eventually happen? I think that there's certain views within Jewish thought that actually hopes for the redemption of as many people as possible, but of all humanity in a certain way. But what the fact is that, as you can see, this is not a discussion just for one class. There's a lot of issues involved in this. But what comes out is the distinction of Jews in the realm of humanity is an issue that many of us don't think about. The fact is that people think we're Jews, and that's it. But the question is that tension between us and humanity is very real. Why did God distinguish us? What's our point? Is it the fact that we're distinguished ultimately, we're distinguished, and we're the redeemed, and they're all lost? Or is it the fact that we're redeemed in order to serve? Or is it somewhere in between? And it's really a challenge. And then the question is, how much are we supposed to reach out to humanity? So there's people saying we're supposed to reach out to humanity. Other people say the way we reach out to humanity is by just being models of just being models to the world. We don't have to go out there and proselytize and reach out to the world like missionaries. We just have to have an area to stroll that we are the model nation. But that's that tension. Issues?
Yeah, but what about the rest of the people? Like, if we're not distinguished, like what does that mean about the rest of the people? If they can't also be on this high level and redeem us?
Well, in terms of not,
it's sort of negative.
So the fact is that's where Gayrus comes in. So the truth is what's interesting about this is that, as I pointed out, the monarchy of a nation usually talks about blue bloods, right? When you want to put the lineage of a monarch, you like saying he's descended from this person, descended from that person, so forth, right there. There's only one real statement of the lineage of the monarchy that's sort of trumpeted in the Jewish text, and that is David from
Yehuda and
Ruth.
Ruth.
Yeah.
The last statements of the book of Ruth is remarkable, right? So and so, David, from Ruth to David. Okay? In other words, it's basically saying, hey, our monarch, our royal family comes from the non-Jew over there. Right? And that really makes a statement that it's not just the ethnic aspect of it. It's true there had to be a nation. It's true the nation has some distinguishing marks in it, and so forth and so forth. But in truth, anyone can be welcomed into this nation and take on a position of standing within this nation in certain ways. And the point is that that's where it happens. But the truth is that God chose one nation to be the one that teaches us. Now, the Rambam says something very interesting, just to expand upon this, show you how complex it is. In a censored statement of Maimonides, he asked the question: so why do we have this Jesus guy and this Muhammad guy? And it's not very complimentary. He says, what the heck is going on here? And he argues that in the path of trying to bring back humanity to God, you can't just go from idolatry to correct monotheism. So God allowed therefore to be created some intermediary steps where people can pick up some of these, and eventually he says, and it's true from Christianity, the Chumash is now known throughout the world. right? The Torah is known throughout the world. So the fact is, it's in a certain way they assist us, and it's not a simple system. It's very complex, and it is possible for people to go out there and teach and do things who may not be Jews. But the point is the fact that there is a Jewish nationhood. That's the force for bringing about the moral ascension of humanity back to where it should be. Okay? Any questions?
So when you follow, say, the idea of Rambam more,
Yeah.
that it's more the way you behave and the way you act, right?
Right.
Then, so can you then, the people that don't do anything, the Jews that really don't feel like they're Jewish, are they considered?
No, they're still Jewish.
They're still Jewish.
Yeah, what the Rambam is saying
no
is...
concept of like leaving Judaism.
What the Rambam is saying is, and that's exactly it. What happens is the Rambam is saying, listen, everyone in the world should believe in this. But what happens is God makes a distinction between people have this obligation, people have that obligation. If you're born Jewish, it means you have this obligation. If you're born Jewish, you have those obligations. That's really what it means. But obviously it's supposed to be the same belief. Now, if you're saying someone is born and doesn't know about this belief, still Jewish. But the reason it sort of works that way is because when you're working with a group that has a sort of corporate entity that you are supposed to be working towards something, you sort of have to say, this is what the group is about. This is what the nation is about. It's not saying we're taking the believers or something like that. This is what the nation is about, and this is what you do just by abiding by the rules of the nation, you will affect the world, hopefully.